So they came out with an emergency ban list that hit some of the most degenerate cards in the existence of Yu-Gi-Oh! And guess what? People literally just adapted and played the next most degenerate thing. And I realized that going first will never be fixed in Yu-Gi-Oh! You want to know why? Because this game has way too many degenerate cards. So the emergency ban list was a great move, by the way, a huge step in the right direction, hitting things like Fossil Dyna, even having the foresight to hit Barrier Statue of the Drop, because that was also a rock monster that can be searched off of Gallic Granite. But guess what? People just played the next best thing. So in Mitsurugi, Pure Mitsurugi at YCS Pittsburgh, I'm sitting at home watching, they are now playing the water statue. It can be searched off of 7 Tachyon, which can be tutored off of Dragluxion, which can be made easily using 2 level 8 Mitsurugi bodies. So as long as you don't use your normal summon, just off of Habakiri, you can full combo yet again and lock out your opponent, just like how you would with Fossil Dyna. They also banned Artifact Mjolnir. This was a really degenerate card that the pure K9 or the K9 Kirstron could summon out to the opponent's field using the Konkari. But now people are just playing Spell Canceller. It's literally more or less the same thing. If you have a Spell Canceller on the board, plus like any form of disruption, the powerful board breakers are all spell cards. Decks like Pure Mitsurugi, Draco Tail, they're all very spell focused. Even Yummy relies on a lot of spells to push through boards, and you just can't do that when Spell Canceller's on the field. So nothing really changed. It's like Patrick Copeland was saying, there are too many floodgates. You can't ban the floodgates because there are too many of them. Ever since the competitive inception of Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's always been some kind of degenerate turn 1 BS that the player can do to either win on the spot or lock the opponent out from playing. So if they go and ban the remaining barrier statues and hit Spell Canceller, well, there's going to be something else that's toxic, and then the players are just going to pivot to that. If we take a look at Yu-Gi-Oh! History, if we go down memory lane, there was the Yada lock. Even though it wasn't like an FTK, it was still something you could do to lock out the opponent. Chaos Emperor Dragon would get rid of their entire hand, and then you summon Yada Grasu and the game's over because your opponent can't do anything. They can't draw for turn, and they have no cards left. In 2010, we had Frog FTK. It was literally an FTK deck that people underestimated, and it ended up winning the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. X-Sabers on turn 1. If you have Rescue Cat plus Fall Troll, you just rip your opponent's hand for multiple cards with double X-Saber Gotems. Turn 1 Infernity Loops with Trishula, you can make like triple Trishula on your turn, or just standard Infernity shenanigans. If you set multiple barriers or breaks, there's no deck that can break through that. There's so many combo heavy decks that end on like a pseudo FTK end board that cannot be broken. In 2013, we had the Wind Up Hand Loop. You rip your opponent's hand for multiple cards again, or you set up Shockmaster, call monsters, call spells. Your opponent just can't play either. There have been multiple consistent FTK decks, especially with pendulums, where we had the Tempest Magician. We also had the Starving Venom Burn with the Leaderless guy. We had Goki with the Gumbler, hand rip for 4 cards plus a U-Lock board. There were Dark World hand loops. There was the Triple Colossus end board that locks your opponent out from playing. My point is there's always something crazy when you're going first in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because this is the only card game without actual hard restrictions. It's not like Pokemon where there's energies or Magic the Gathering where there's land cards that you have to play. You have to tap for mana. There's no mana system. The only hard restrictions that we have in this game are number 1 normal summon per turn, and number 2, recent addition in the past decade, I might add, the hard once per turn effects on cards. This is why like a lot of the older cards that say once per turn are not hard once per turns, and they inevitably become really busted because you can use multiple of them. And this is another reason why the normal summons have been so ridiculously pushed in this game, because they realize that the normal summon is like the one hard restriction on the game. So it's okay for them to print like, Snake Eye Ash, Ice Ryzeal, Aramasa even. But I think at the end of the day, this is something that we have to accept as a player base. This is what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. There is no restrictions on stuff, but that's just how the game works. So inevitably, there will be things that are busted going first. Unfortunately, that's just how the game is. And honestly, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people, including myself, like Yu-Gi-Oh! So much, because it's so crazy. You can do so many things in one turn, which number 1 makes gameplay a lot more funner. We're not like relying on turns. Like people always say, oh, there's only 2 or 3 turns on average in Yu-Gi-Oh! That sounds awful. Because coming from other games like Pokemon and Magic, how they measure interaction is through turns because of those restrictions. Playing 1 land per turn, playing 1 energy per turn, for example. There are restrictions which inevitably translate to more turns. But in Yu-Gi-Oh! You only have like 2 or 3 turns because there are a lot of more interactions in each turn, with having a lot of hand trap boards, a lot of grinding, a lot of effects activating everywhere, a lot of searching your decks. Turns take a lot longer, so you don't measure turns as an indicator for how good the game is. You measure interactions. And if you look at non-card games, Marvel vs. Capcom is very much similar. That game is basically you touch someone and it's like a full combo. You basically win the game. And I think that's one thing that we love about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it's so chaotic. Being able to do all these interactions, yes, they can be cancerous sometimes, but at the end of the day, the same players that have been topping events and winning YCSs, SJCs, ever since the dawn of competitiveness in this game, we're talking like the early 2000s, it's always been the same names. Why? Because this game still takes skill at the end of the day. The fact that there's so many things you can do, so many interactions, despite having those cancerous things, the game is still very, very skillful at the highest levels, and it's become even more skillful recently because of how many interactions are in the game, cards having a billion effects that you forget about, and even deck building. If there's a degenerate FTK combo, it forces you to scour the card pool for an obscure card that was previously unplayable but suddenly becomes good. And the fact that there's no rotation in this game means that you can literally look through bulk in Yu-Gi-Oh! And find something good. There's no reason why Yu-Gi-Oh! Bulk is the most expensive out of any card game, more so than Magic, more so than Pokemon, which are literally like pennies for their bulk, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards can inevitably become good even though they've been unplayable. You read a card and you're like, wow, this card is absolutely crap. It's not playable. But then some card comes out and all of a sudden that card becomes like insanely good. Like even cards like DNA Surgery back in 2013 against spellbooks, all of a sudden DNA Surgery became insane because you call dragons and then they can't activate any of their spellbook cards because it requires them to control a spellbook monster, right? Cards that you would not think to be remotely playable become playable over time. And that's one thing I love about the deck building perspective of this game. So I'm just saying Yu-Gi-Oh! Is broken, and that's part of the reason why I love it. I see a lot of people complaining about this on Twitter. They're like, oh, this game can't be fixed. There's so many crazy things. Well, guess what? This is a game that we played for a long time. Like myself, I've been in this game for over 15 years playing competitively, and it's always been toxic. It is not a recent thing. A lot of people seem to think it's a recent thing where it's like, oh, okay, the game has become so fast and power crept. No, the game has always been like this, and this is one of the reasons why I love it so much. There's no easy way to fix it per se, but there are ways to keep it in check, and I think the R&D team is doing a fantastic job with that recently. It seems like Konami Japan has given them the green light, you know, making changes to the time rules, making the Genesis format, and of course the emergency ban list that we just got, where they're actually attacking cards that people have said have been annoying, have been busted going first cards for like a decade. You know, Dimension No Barrier has been a crazy card that's been very, very one-sided. They just went and hit this card. I think they're doing a really great job, and I love to see it. You know, they're giving new prize support as well. The prize support, they're still working on this, making this even better. This is something that's been unprecedented. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has traditionally had, you know, the worst prize support, but now it seems like they're actually listening to the player base and trying to actively make it better. They still have restrictions at the end of the day based on what Konami Japan dictates, it seems, but they're trying to play around that. They're trying their best to tiptoe around that and give what's best for the players, what we're asking this whole entire time, which I think is phenomenal. And again, I see a lot of people complaining on Twitter, but I think at the end of the day, we should be appreciating that number one, we signed up to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's a broken game, and number two, they're actually trying to make it the best version of this broken game that has the most interactivity. So instead of sitting at home complaining on Twitter, I would say adapt, try and beat the metagame. Try and actually play this game competitively, because once you realize, even though there are degenerate things going first, it's still the same faces that are doing well in this game. Guess what? Because this game, at the end of the day, skill is still outweighing the luck factor. Skill is outweighing these FTKs, these degenerate locks, super heavy combo decks. If you're good at the game, you will find a way to beat this game. Even though there is a lot of RNG and variance, there is definitely more skill. And when everyone's playing with the same set of rules and circumstances, the best thing we can do is adapt and play the best with what we're given.